Sarah, thank you for joining me on the Social Buzz podcast. Firstly, and the most important thing, how are you keeping?
I'm really, really well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and it's quite exciting to be doing this. So thank you for asking me to get involved.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I thought you would probably be one of the best people to bring on, considering how things are at the moment in the current climate. So, just before I know we go kind of start going into all the questions and kind of picking your brains on strategies and ways we can move forward, could you just give the viewers and listeners a bit of a background about yourself and how you kind of got involved in the food sector?
Sure. Okay. So I'm Sarah Ali Choudhury, and I've been born into the food industry. When I was growing up, my parents had a restaurant, so I was the youngest Asian female to run an Indian restaurant for many years, and that was when I was 19 and recognized as one of the first Asian female to be running an Indian restaurant. And then I got married, had children, and sort of went away from the restaurant life. But 3 years ago, I decided to come back, and I don't have a restaurant myself, but my as in my own restaurant. My husband's got a few restaurants, so I help him with that. And also, my parents still have the same restaurant that I used to run, so I'm very much involved in that way. But one of the things that I decided to do to get involved with food was to sort of highlight some of the issues that probably need addressing. A lot of things have changed or should have changed from years ago and haven't. And so I suppose that's one of the reasons why I came back. I've also done a few things with food programs. I've done some stuff with Channel 4, with BBC, and really just uh, getting more and more involved with food. So I also do writing articles, recipes, and making a global impact, I would say.
Fabulous. So look, we're all in the same boat at the moment. The hospitality sector has been hit the absolute hardest. I personally felt they got thrown under the bus by the government when they said, don't go to pubs and restaurants and bars, but you can still, they didn't tell them to shut, but they said to people, don't go in, which kind of threw them totally under the bus.
Yeah, I think they acted quite well. It was very unpredictable what was going on in the current situation, but I suppose I think it would be fair to say in respect of the government, I think they just were trying to do the best that they could at the time. And some of the decisions that were made have had a really, 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 terrible effect on the businesses and the hospitality industry.
Now, one of the questions I really wanted to ask you was, what are some of the strategies and activities food and drink businesses can undertake in the current climate to help them carry on growing or sustain where they are, rather, because you hear so many that are just either going bust, don't know what to do. So what do you feel that they can do in the current climate?
Well, I think this is when we go into this sort of crisis issue that we're facing. I think one of the things that we could look at is how we can improve ourselves given the situation. A lot of restaurants have completely closed, and some of them have decided to sort of close unless it was like a weekend when it's a busier period. And so what I think we're finding now is that there's a lot of people that are home thinking we'll wait until the weekend when it's going to be really busy and then we'll open the restaurant. But I would say that during this time, and this is I think things that I'm doing as well, is I would say this is a perfect opportunity for people to find their weaknesses in business. So if they've got a restaurant or a takeaway or whatever it is that they're doing, there will be certain areas that they'll be lacking in, because 99% of the time restaurant owners put their everything into being in the restaurant, and they're so time consuming. It takes up so many hours of their day. If they've got children, or if it's a family business, for example, they're normally picking up their children or dealing with their children, dealing with a family home, and then dealing with the business as well. And so what they lack is the ability to do other things that we are now having to face and go to, which is like social media, the online stuff. And this, I mean, we're having this, we would not have been speaking if it wasn't for the opportunity of this. So this is a time when I would say this is perfect for people to really get to grips with things that could improve their business. So social media, people who don't understand about Facebook ads, promoting their business while they're offline, maybe find things that they could do to get themselves a bit more technically updated. So if they have a website for their restaurant, perhaps they could find things that they've done over the past few months to sort of highlight and keep their restaurant at the forefront of their customers' minds. So, for example, maybe get testimonials from customers if they've had really great feedback about something, or if they're planning to do something in the future, if they're thinking about getting involved in a cook, some sort of food festival or doing a cookery demonstration. This is a time to be talking about those things, to just keep the restaurant at the forefront of their customers' minds. Start getting used to doing emailing, talk about what they're planning to change. People will find that with the restaurant, what's going to happen is that where they've spent so many years sort of being open all the way through, 7 days a week for long hours, and people are having to cut down now, they'll find that actually we've been able to achieve the same sort of money with a lot less hassle in a very short space of time. And going forward, I think that would be a really, really good impact for any restaurant owner to give themselves more time just for themselves and their families, to sort of say, well, actually, during the coronavirus period of time when we had to close the restaurants and change into a takeaway, we were still able to accumulate this much money, or to be able to extend our our periods of being at home with our families and stuff. Is it important to be open such long hours if we can sort of narrow it down into a smaller area of time, just so that people can, it doesn't mean that they're not necessarily working, but there could be another way for us all to use online strategies to further ourselves.
I think look, we work in this sector from a marketing point of view with many brands, and what we feel is the brands that will win are the ones that actually build a brand, and restaurants, food, drink brands that just built a business on price led, that were just either dropping price, offers all the time, just to drive people through the door or purchases online, have got no loyalty from anybody, because you're only going there because it's got a deal on, or it's on Uber Eats, or it's on Deliveroo, or you've seen it in the supermarkets and it's just there because it's got a deal. Anybody that's built a brand will win because you've still got the brand loyalty and people will come back to you. Now, kind of one of the interesting things when I was putting this together was, and I looked up, obviously there's doom and gloom, right? So there's doom and gloom across the board. People think, oh God, everything's going to get closed. It's going to be empty. Nothing's going to reopen again. But I feel that there will be opportunities for food and drink brands going forward. Now, from your point of view, where do you think these opportunities will arise? Will it arise in more where, for example, you'll be able to get better deals on rent and rates? Do you see a lot of these mainstream brands closing and then there being a vacuum and opportunity to move into different cuisines? Where do you see the opportunities arising because of COVID-19 once it's over?
Well, if we look at the whole structure of the hospitality industry, and what situation they've been in, and everybody in that has been in it together. So they've all been the ones who have been told, well, you can stay open, but nobody should go there. So they've all had to take that themselves and deal with that situation as almost like a family network of hospitality industry people. Now, I think moving forward, one of the things that will probably change is going to be funding towards those industries. And I also think that one of the other thing will be like I said about the opening and times of restaurants. I think that will change dramatically. I think part-time staff will be something, there will be more job opportunities where part-time staff are concerned rather than full-time staff, because I think people will probably end up changing their hours. I'm saying this from experience from my very, very close family and what I've heard from them, who said, like, why are we doing this? Why do we normally sort of open on these hours and we're employing full-time staff and all that kind of stuff? And then, we could have they could have given jobs to more people, more part-time staff. They could have done things like that. So I think that could possibly change moving forward. I mean, this is just a sort of, we're at guessing stage because we don't know what's going to happen moving forward from here. But I think in terms of opportunities opening up, I wouldn't sit there and wait for any opportunities to fall into your lap. I think one of the most important thing is to grab the opportunity yourself and create something for yourself. So there are lots of people who, like we were saying about restaurant owners who have closed their restaurant and who aren't. Maybe they could be looking at doing things like if they can find out the most loved dish from their menu and maybe doing cookery videos and showing people how they can do that themselves and achieve something similar. What people will come out from at the end of this COVID-19 situation is that people will find themselves having learnt so many skills. I figured out how to use Zoom in the last few days.
Okay.
So and then you'll find that people are learning. I've had people who say, God, I've always wanted to cook something from scratch, and I get feedback, I get photos, I get input from people who've tried my online recipes, or they're watching me do a live cookery thing and they cook along with me, or they do they will be doing more things where it's digitally encouraged. So like we're doing this podcast that you're doing, I think this is an opportunity for people like yourself to really take over and go to the next level, because people are at home, people are listening, and people want to learn. And there are loads of things that people can take into their own hands in terms of learning with online platforms, because they've all been opened up and free suddenly because of the situation. So people are encouraging learning right now, and I think that's where we can take this.
Yeah, and I agree. So you've got the digital side, which I think will bring huge opportunity, rather than just posting, this is what we've got on offer, this is what we're cooking. Masterclasses online will be huge. I think brands and restaurants and food going into the community will be huge. As again, that brand going from just, rather than being a restaurant, how does it move forward and go within to the community? You've seen that already. A lot of brands we're working with, and you've seen it as well from within your own area, that are short but are supplying the NHS, that are supplying other public services, and going further and showing that, we do care about the community. We are here for the community. And I think that's how that mindset has changed, and it's changed, and I see them brands winning. That's what I see. I see them brands going further, and it's just about the mindset as well.
Those who have, there is a thing with building a restaurant, and there is a thing with building your brand as a person and an individual. And if you don't have a restaurant like myself, for example, then you have to create yourself into a brand. And that's the only way that you can move forward, because otherwise you're just, what are you? There isn't anything there. You don't have a product, or you don't have anything. So those people who have a restaurant, they have something there that they can use to base themselves and build a brand around themselves. I know some of my friends personally who have their own restaurants and are doing live videos on their cooking or their favorite recipes, or what the customers really like, something that's quite unique. And so I think for themselves, they're building an opportunity for after to hold real masterclasses, real cookery courses in person. So because they have a space available, and they have a restaurant space, they could do that. So this will open up thought process for people. Worked online, they also work in reality. So if it works online for us, then in the future people say, well, actually I quite enjoyed watching their cooking online, but I'd really like to go and learn with them in person. So they'd be cooking, starting up sort of masterclass works, and using the space that they have to create something that would be activities and interest to gain more custom.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think some great points you've raised there. Just going back to my original point, which I want to just slightly touch on more, is, do you see businesses who build their brand winning more over businesses who solely just focused on offers?
Well, what happens is you find the bigger brands tend to do the offers and things like that, and some of the smaller places, they will do sort of, oh, we've got a special offer on this or that to try and make people come back, and the loyalty aspect. But when you create a brand of your own and you're constantly working on it, you're constantly looking at what, not just a sort of cheap whim, like, yeah, let's just do this and get as many people, and it's almost like a cheap fad that is just a passing by thing, rather than people who are building their brands up, they're taking it to another level. And whatever happens, whether the situation of COVID-19 affects their restaurant or not, what it does for them is it creates them as a brand. So even after COVID-19, even if, because we're very unsure of where the restaurant situation is going and we don't know what will happen, we don't know if we're going to be here for 3 months, 6 months, and what if it goes even worse and we're here for even longer? Nobody can say until that time comes. We would hope that we can come out of this situation sooner. But if it doesn't, then what those people can do is build themselves up as a brand, which is always like, well, with a restaurant, you can sell it, you can sell the name, the reputation, and everything else that goes with it and take it over. Somebody will buy it from you. But if you build yourself as a brand, you can then do anything, you know, and especially within, if you're in the food industry, and you can take it to any direction you like within food, and you know, even going into other things. So you can write books about, you know, your recipes, or you can do you know, and that's actually an angle that I've just recently done. I just published my own book in the last 3 weeks, which was something I've been trying to do for years, and in the last 2 weeks I've managed to get it done. And that's my first ever one. So it's all about how to win awards, something that I think is quite important for building your brand as well, which gets you recognized on different platforms and can take you to a global scale. So I think, where you asking about building up yourself as a brand, I think it's extremely important to build yourself up as a brand, even if you do have a restaurant. And I know that people sort of build up the restaurant and we give the restaurant a name, and the restaurant stands as, that's the restaurant and that's the brand. But if you own the restaurant, then you should be branding yourself as well, and recognizing yourself as the leader here, because then once you sell the restaurant off, you've also sold everything that you've worked for. Whereas if you were creating yourself as a brand as well, then once you sell the restaurant, you're still yourself and you're still a brand, and you can still go and do other things in the same field.
No, yeah, personal branding is very important more than ever now with the social media, because it's easier to do and more people are understanding the benefits of it. Whereas years ago, you probably had a handful that really
Yeah.
kind of understood it. But now it's a very valid point. Now, do you think there'll be a change in the way consumers interact with restaurants once, because people are just eventually, when, let's say this ends mid-May, people have technically been in lockdown for 6 to 8 weeks. So their customers staying in. A lot of restaurants and a lot of brands that were not doing deliveries are now doing deliveries to either stay afloat or to serve their customers, either via Uber, Deliveroo, Just Eat, or internally having delivery drivers. Do you see that trend staying, in a sense that people think, you know what, I like staying in, or we went out a lot, or we went out twice a week, now we're going to stay in 1 day a week and maybe cook something and watch Netflix? And do you see that kind of
Yeah, I think
mindset?
what will happen is, again, we're just guessing, but I think what will happen is that there will be, after this lockdown is lifted, I think everybody's going to go completely crazy about eating out for a time, and I think they'll be busier than ever, because people are just like, my God, I'm sick of eating my own food, you know, and they're just going to want to go out and just eat as much as they can. I think so. I think my personal experience of understanding what's going on here is, I think, you know, telling from the characteristics of people, especially if they're not that familiar with cooking, especially if they're like, well, actually, I've spent most of my life working. I haven't been able to get to grips with cooking from a young age, and now I'm stuck at home and I have to cook, and they're learning. Because for myself, I mean, I've been in the food industry for years. My mum's a wonderful cook. My family, you know, we come from a family who are all, you know, I'm not just blowing my own trumpet, but I feel like I've learned from the best. So being at home and cooking, my husband's loving it. and my children are loving it because I'm here all the time and they're just eating really great food. But I've got this expertise behind me because I'm in that food industry, and because I have a passion for it, and I come from a family of who cook great food. I mean, this is what we're. I mean, I'm lucky, but some of the people who I've spoken to, they're not. They've never had a passion for cooking. They've never had time to cook. They're really, really busy people. They're working all the time. They're in very, high profile jobs. And then I'm having them phone me up and say, can you help me? Like, how can I cook this? Or, what's the best way to do this? And you find like, yeah, they're learning, but they're not, they're not, it's something like they're having to learn overnight, not being able to have sort of accumulated this skill over years of learning, or years of following, or having a passion for it. So I think initially what will probably happen is people will just be like, God, thank God that lockdown's lifted now and we can go out. And then I think gradually people will then start to slow down, and then they will say, well, actually I can cook, and I could do it when I needed to do it. And also they'll find they're saving a lot of money, right? A lot of money. When you calculate the amount of money that people do spend on going out all the time, they're going to be saying, well, I fed my whole family for a good 1 month on that
From
budget
1 year.
on what I'm spending in a week going out and eating. And that will come into it a lot. The other things that we're doing is with the car, for example. With my own car, I had a 3-liter Audi, and great family car.
3-liter Audi. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was killing me. It was literally killing me on the diesel. And then I've recently changed it, and I still got a 7-seater car, but it's an economical one. So where I was paying like £570 for road tax, I'm now spending £30 a year for road tax. And these are the changes that people want to make in their life, because they want to spend money on things that is feel good factor, things like holidays with your family, or or just having money there just for the hell of it, so I could go out and buy something. But when you've got cars and things like that, or you go out and you eat a lot, you're draining yourself when you won't realize until I actually went into a coat that I've been wearing for the last, through the winter, that I've got hung up in my wardrobe. And I didn't go into the pockets for any particular reason until the other day I went to look for something, and I pulled out like a wad of cash.
Wow.
That would never have been in my pocket for that long, ever. And you think, I thought, God, I didn't even remember that was there. It was a great feeling. But at the same time, this is what we are going to find. We are going to find some really, really good things from this experience that we're having to go through, that we are saving money. And as you asked, what do I think will happen? I think immediately after, I think that everybody is going to go completely crazy on eating out for a while. And I think then they're going to suddenly feel that, God, I've just spent, loads of money. And I think people are going to hone back in a bit, and they will probably be a bit more careful about eating out and spending money so, thoughtlessly. No offense to any business owners or anything like that, but the food that people eat out, they obviously love it, or they wouldn't be eating out, and hospitality industries wouldn't be doing so well if that was the situation. But clearly the hospitality industry is doing as well as it is, because they provide this amazing service of great food, great hospitality industries, they're brilliant. But I think people are going to start to feel like, I can cook, and they'll start to learn, and they'll start to enjoy it, and they'll start to do it themselves.
My opinion is slightly different to yours, right? I'll just tell you where the mindset I'm coming from. I do agree with certain elements of what you're saying. I agree that once the curfew comes off, I'll call it a curfew, everyone's just going to be out because they're all sick of being inside. I think with the marketing I'm already seeing from the likes of Uber, Deliveroo, these kind of brands, and how they are trying to entice people into using, because if you, depending on where you live, Uber are already doing 50% off just to get people using that system. There are a lot of restaurants that were never on Uber or never done delivery are using delivery. And I think it'll be a mix of both. People have discovered an element of cooking, or a skill they've discovered, or a dish they like to cook. which they'll do. I think deliveries will go through the roof because until the government creates a vaccine, there will be still an element of fear that if I go out, will I get this
Yeah.
disease?
Yeah.
Thirdly, I think,
I agree with that. Yeah.
because people are thinking that once the curfew comes off, everything goes back to normal. But the COVID-19 still exists. It takes one person to go into a crowd and we're back to square one again. So
Yes.
that's where I see deliveries filling that vacuum. And thirdly, my original point, and what I agree with you, is I see that basically once the doors open, people will be like, let's go, it's fine, I just want to get out. Because
Yeah.
people are so, we're a very social.
I think, I have to agree with you as well, but and the same with the same sort of hat on as you're saying is that I do feel a bit like we are changing ourselves with our mindset of what we're doing. You know, like all the online meetings that we're having now with most of the people. I mean, we haven't stopped. It's not that we're not going out at all, so we've stopped meeting the people. We're meeting them online, but it's definitely it's I found, I mean, I had this conversation this morning with somebody who I'm a colleague with, and we're saying that we're not stopping the things that we're doing. In fact, I'm doing a lot more online than I normally would. But what we're finding is that when we do the normal meetings, when they're face to face, what you would do is you go into, a room or a hotel or whatever, and then you'll meet waiting for a load of people. You'll have some snacks, some drinks, and I mean that's 1 hour gone. You've also had to go there, park your car, and everything else to travel, and then the whole perception of getting yourself ready before you go, bringing yourself to the mindset where you need to be before you go for your meeting. Whereas here, we're like, it's so much more comfortable in your own space to be able to do it. I mean, obviously, we would need to go back to reality and have the same sort of things that we normally do. But I do feel a bit like in the last few months, probably the last year, it's become very, very sort of condensed with so many. You can sometimes go, I've had times when I've been from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next, before you come home. And it's the same sort of format everywhere. And you think, if you really accumulate the amount of time that you actually got the job done, right, you can narrow it down to probably like in half an hour to an hour, where the actual meeting has gone on for 3 hours, for example. Whereas when we're doing it online, we come down, we're ready to go, and we're doing a Zoom meeting and we've just done it. I mean, I'm the incoming president for the Rotary Club that I'm with at Poole Bay Rotary Club. And we had our meeting yesterday with 21 people online.
Wow.
And funny thing is, they're all way ahead of me when it comes to technology, and they were telling me what to do. So I was like, God, I felt silly. But they really knew what they were doing. And there was 21 of us there, which would normally be, in a hotel having this meeting, and we'd normally be there for quite long after. And we kind of came down, we had our meeting, within 45 minutes, we were done. And it was very, this is our meeting, let's stick to the points, let's get it done. Where it's very difficult to do that when you're in a room full of your friends,
Yeah, it is. And like I said, with tech and people using new platforms, like you've mentioned as well, I think that trend is changing. It's about habits, isn't it? Once you get used to using
Yeah.
something, you think it's a lot easier. Like you said, it can take you an hour getting somewhere, an hour getting back, and that can lose time. Sometimes you do have to have that physical meeting as well. Somebody like me loves meeting people in person. So
But
I
I
think,
think, but I also think that what you said as well is very true. Where people are going to be worried about that it just takes one person, and you can go back to square one. And I think that is where I feel I fit in that category where I'm terrified of, because I've got 4 children, and the two girls and 2 boys, and the older 2, they're a bit older, so they can think for themselves. But the younger 2, one of them's got asthma and I've got asthma as well. So being in that sort of high risk situation, I am actually, even when it's lifted, I'm going to be really worried about mixing with a whole load of people, because it it doesn't, you won't even know. It could be up to 2 weeks before you even have any symptoms anyway. So
yeah, I think until we get a vaccine, this isn't going anywhere. I think
yeah.
this is basically not going anywhere. And I was reading yesterday on there's a race to create a vaccine. The earliest we'll get one is 18 months. So if you go from January when it actually starts, because
And
China
I'm
is,
not dying for that either, to be
yeah,
honest, because I'm terrified of injection, like literally terrified of injection. So I'm like, I don't even want that, because I don't want
so
anything like that injected into my body.
it's either an injection or a ventilator. So I'll let you pick on that one. So, um, on going back, how do you think the government should support the hospitality sector going forward? Then, do you think there should be more support? Do you think they've done enough? Do you think they've done more than enough, or do you think they should be giving ongoing support,
I
rents,
don't think
rates?
anybody can ever say that anyone's done more than enough for the hospitality
I
industry.
think that I personally think the package they've announced was way more than I thought they would ever do. If you take in the 25 grand
Yeah,
for,
we all like that Rishi Sunak. He's a good guy, and I think
he's an ex-investment banker, so he knows what he's doing. Yeah,
he's a very good guy. But I think, what they've missed in that whole package is the smaller businesses who don't fit in the category for funding, who don't fit in the category for grant, or for for any additional funding. So there is a whole load of people that fall in between who won't get any funding. And so what happens to them? So although the package, and Rishi did do a great deal for everybody, he also has missed a big chunk of people that fall in a category who are stuck, whose businesses may have been slightly stuck before this situation, but now they're really going to feel the pinch. The banks, we were told, would agree to doing this without too much hassle. It would be very straightforward, but apparently it hasn't been very
no, it's
straightforward for
not.
a lot of
It's
people.
not. It's not. I know a lot of people that have gone in that, and for what I've heard, because I
Yeah,
know a lot of other agencies. Initially, they were pushing you away from the government loan scheme and pushing you towards their own products. And
yeah.
when you have asked for the government, I don't know the exact name of that loan, but the one that government is saying where they take care of the interest for the first year, they're being very iffy about it. And usually from somebody that worked in sales years ago, that's telling me that the person that has
I
to
think it's
process
that
it,
COVID impact loan, isn't it?
yeah, so the person processing or selling it isn't being rewarded for selling it because it's already sold because somebody's ringing you for it. And
Yeah.
I think that there's a bit of a internally how they are kind of looking at is what's causing the issue.
What would I mean, I think there's a lot of advice out there for small businesses who dedicate their time to helping the small businesses. I mean, I'm quite aligned with one called Small Business Saturday, Small Business Britain, and every morning they on every weekday morning they go on live and they do a live video and they tell all the small businesses exactly where they are, and it's a very straightforward, simple to understand advice. I think the other thing that we'll find later is that a lot of people will probably change their accountants, because
Oh
if you're in
yes,
the business if you're in the business hospitality industry and you've got an accountant, really they should be telling us what we are entitled to, what we could do, and where we could be going. And if they're not doing that, then that's something that they'll probably realize after, when they speak to other people and say, well, actually, my accountant came and said this is what I could do, this is what to sort of cover us during this period. And if your accountant and your solicitor and those people are not sort of stepping up during this time, which is really the time that you need them, because that's not our expertise. We didn't know this was happening. The expertise for the hospitality industry is looking after your customer, making sure your customers happy, promoting the business, and sales, and the food side of it. Whereas those are the people that we have engaged with and that we're paying to tell us when we come into a situation like this, like, where does that leave us? And that's what they're paying for. So I think we'll find a lot of people changing accountants and solicitors upcoming.
I think the 2 points of contact is first, your point of contact is your accountant. Your second point of contact, depending on how you set up, is your HR provider. If you have a HR provider, we have one for ourselves. So daily or whenever there's a change, we get a newsletter, and our own HR company, they do a Zoom call every week or a pre-record and tell you, because things are changing on the hour. So them are your 2 points of contact. I would also look at the Chamber of Commerce. If you're a member in the Chamber of Commerce, And if not, look online. There's the UK business support website. But really, your accountant is your first point of contact. But we're very
Yeah.
lucky in England where the government website is also very good. But sometimes the jargon is what scares people, because some people don't understand furlough at the moment. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of Chinese whispers. So accountant, if you've got HR support, speak to them, because they also know. And Chamber of Commerce can guide you into the right direction. Now, what do you think? Let's focus on restaurants for a second. Do you think restaurants can do more to help the current climate? For example, the NHS, public services. Do you think they could be doing more whilst maybe some are closed?
I think there are loads of restaurants and who are doing lots for the NHS at the moment. I'm seeing things every day where people are taking in food, or delivering takeaways and to homeless people, or to I feel that they're doing more now than ever, and they're definitely talking about it too, because we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in the news, we're seeing it on social media, about people who are saying, well, I'm doing this, and it's great because the food that they have there, they have they have sell by dates. They're limited on how much time they have there, so if they're not going to be using it, or if they're not going to be open, it's the best way that you could use this and distribute the food is by giving it to those people who need it most. People who are even doing things like making cakes, they're making cakes and delivering it to the staff room in the hospital. I know that, my mum, I know that she cooked some food the other day and she gave it to somebody who was giving food to someone else. There's loads of people in restaurants and the takeaway food industry who are supporting, the fire, the police, the NHS as much as they can. And I think we can't ask for more. People are doing as much as they can. While they're also trying to follow the guidelines of being safe and keeping themselves sort of, to not put themselves at risk or to create more problems in those sectors. So I think we can't ask for more than that. And also, we all appreciate, as a whole, to anybody who's listening and who's doing those things, we really appreciate that, because that's keeping those people going, being able to continue with their jobs and still being able to eat, because what it's like. If you can't eat, you can't function. We all know that. So we're very grateful to those people who are doing that and who are putting themselves out there.
Yeah, some of our clients are like free hot drinks for public services. They are, if you're over 60 and you can't, if you haven't got access to food, they'll deliver hot, cold, prepared food to you, contactless. One of our other clients, which is a really big restaurant chain, have offered all their premises to the NHS, however they want to use them. I think my point of my question was, I think if it's not crossed somebody's mind, you might think you're too small, or you might think, really, I can't do anything. Support them in however you can. It might be you once a week sending cups of tea, or however you can support the public services, because they were stretched prior to this. They are totally stretched now.
I think that is what will change later, when it comes to government and what they're doing. I'm not so sure they're going to provide anything extra for hospitality industry, but I really do hope that they understand the importance of NHS staff, and I hope that they change things for them, because I think they've had a struggle for a really good few years now with their sort of
I remember, sorry to cut you off there, I remember in 2017 or 18 when I think the NHS staff asked for a pay rise, and the House of Commons voted it down and they cheered for it. The MPs
Can you believe
cheered
that?
for it.
And now look at them now.
And now NHS
a lot
staff
of them are in there
saving these people. And I touch upon, we're going a bit political now, immigrants. How many foreigners are saving lives and have lost lives?
It's just
incredible. And we should never ever look at it as somebody's an immigrant, somebody's coloured, somebody's black or white.
When we're being told to go out and clap, I'm not I know why we're being asked to clap, because they're doing an
Are you on about
amazing
clap
job.
for Boris or clap for the NHS?
No, clap for NHS. Because well, with all due respect, Boris is in hospital. He's not the one who's saving lives at the moment. But when we are asked to go out and clap, it's like, yeah, but that's not going to help them. What they really need is to have their situation looked at, the pay and what they're doing. So, I mean, that could be a whole different discussion on in itself. I mean, I'm not even in that field to know or understand how much they're putting in. But I mean, when they said they needed some help, 450. Well, how much did they need? They were looking for
Yeah, it was.
some staff, for extra staff to sort of come forward. And I said to my husband at the time, I said to him when I heard it, that they're going to get that help overnight. And and they doubled it, didn't they? It
Yeah, I
was
think it
more than
was
they expected.
ridiculous. It was, yeah, it was huge, and I think it's great to see that the community pulling together and everybody supporting. On the sad side, it just shows how underfunded they were for the past 10 years. So the Tories
Yeah.
cannot even say it was Labour. You've been in for 10 years. Secondly, it shouldn't have got to this state where we're asking for volunteers of that scale. We should
Yeah.
not have had to bring in retired elder doctors and nurses to help. We shouldn't have to be bringing in people in the final years of medical school or whatever to kind of help. But
It's quite insulting to those people, because some people have probably tried to get in for years in the NHS, being refused jobs and all that kind of thing, and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, can you come and help us now? And I mean, they're just really commendable, the people who are involved in NHS. And I've got one of my cousins is, she's with NHS and she works in the baby unit and stuff. And she was telling me about the situation, what's going on over there. And it's in every area and in every capacity, it's being completely fulfilled by those people. So they are hands down just amazing. So I do hope that we can ask for as much help as we want in the hospitality industry, but really we have to be honest about this situation. If it wasn't for the NHS right now, we would be in absolute dire straits. So they need to be looked at before anything else.
of course, of course. Do you see there being a staffing crisis in hospitality? So let's say this goes
There
on for two.
already there already was a hospitality staff crisis before all of this. And this is why I say I think situation will change with staffing, because I think hours before anything else will probably change. And where it comes to staff, I think staff will probably, I think, like I said, initially, things will change because of the situation we're in, where everyone will suddenly be really busy. But then I think it might calm down, and then people will be able to fully understand how they can work together within the hospitality industry to understand what they need and staff needs to get a proper work-life balance.
Yeah, I see a lot. If this goes on further, because a lot in the hospitality sector are paid cash in hand, which is that's how it is. Now, I see a lot of staff, depending on how long it goes on for, starting looking for other jobs. You see a huge recruit drive within the supermarkets, online deliveries, people at Amazon. And what I'm thinking is, if somebody's invested a lot of time in floor managers or waiters, and then they've gone, and now they're reopening, I see a bit of a gap there, and I don't see how some are going to get around that.
Well, we've had within the Indian industry, we've had staff crisis for quite some time now. And so I would say that at the moment, considering the situation that we're in, people are not really having as much of an issue as because everybody's closed. Once it gets back to normal, what we'll find is that Indian restaurants, for example, we would struggle to find a tandoori chef or to find a second chef, or and that's been something that's just talking about the Indian food industry at the moment, and that's been crisis for a really good few years now.
Yes,
So I think
that's right.
this situation, what it will do is maybe give people an opportunity to see how they can and work that slightly differently, so that maybe you know, menus could change. A lot of the Indian restaurant menus are like pages and pages long, and so if you go in a restaurant and you've got pages and pages, and you need lots of people to be cooking that much food, you know. Whereas when you sort of decrease the amount of dishes you have and do it so that you could have you know, one or two staff rather than four or five staff, because the bigger the menu, the bigger staff proportion you'll need. So I think, you know, it depends solely on how individuals feel. And it's a very traditional thing to have a big restaurant menu. But I think it makes sense to really look at this carefully, and people have got this time now to sit down and go, do I need that many things on my menu? Is this selling? Is that selling? You know, do I need this many people? What are my actual main things? They could focus on what they really, really need. And this might be a way to help them to fill the gap that they're trying to fill.
Yeah, you know that you're right. There was a skill shortage as it is because of this trying to get people in from abroad or wherever. If
And the
somebody,
immigration, you know, that's hopefully something that can be looked at after this situation, because as you say, with the NHS, for example, look how many you know, um, people who are immigrants who are helping people in the NHS. And it's the same with the restaurant industry. There are so many people, because of the immigration rules. I think, you know, that should be looked at.
now, what about from a marketing point of view? What can restaurants do you think, just from your point of view going
Well,
forward?
there's a few things that are, you know, that I would say the restaurants can do. There's a few sites that people can go on. So if they're not really good um, at doing marketing themselves, or being on a computer, for example, they can first of all be looking at digital skills. BT do one called BT Digital Skills. I think what I'll do, Bilal, is I'll send you over the links, and then you can maybe put it in somewhere so people can have a
Yeah,
look at digital skills if they want to enhance them or get better. People like yourself and what you're doing with marketing brands and things like that. I mean, you're offering people the opportunity to look at what you're doing and how that could help their business. So I always think to myself, it's always good to know what I'm doing on a computer, but I always need a specialist to deal with their speciality.
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think
so
for any brand right now, especially in food and hospitality or any sector, the best thing to do right now is have a fine line between pushing offers and building brand. They're two different things. I would spend a bit of time on building your brand, putting community messages out there, making sure if people are well, uh, whatever the government is saying, put that across into your marketing. Stay home, order food online, keep safe. When it comes to actual marketing tactics, one of the best things at the moment are Instagram stories, which are really underpriced. So if you're running ads, try to run them on Instagram stories. You can put your ad in front of 1,000 people right now for less than £1, and it's so underpriced. I
yeah,
would
but
look
you
at
see, the thing is that people don't understand that. Like, people don't understand when you say like the ads, like say, for example, the Instagram ads or the Facebook ads, a lot of people that you'll be talking to who are in the restaurant trade, I would say that a lot of them don't know what that really means. Like if they say, oh yeah, I do Facebook, the savvy guys and the younger ones, what they're doing, because they're playing on Facebook all the
I
time,
th-
how that works. But a lot of people don't, which is why they come to you, because that's what you do. I mean, I fully, so if for example, I said to you, well, actually, you know, Bilal, I'm doing these online cooking videos and I want people to really tune in. And if I came to you, what could you do for me?
yeah, and I think it's a valid point. I think it's a great time for somebody to sit there now and understand their customer. Number one, what am I? Who is my customer? What is my customer's habits? Where are they spending time online? What are they doing? Then looking at, let's just take, and if your customer is somebody who's 25 to 35, they're most likely spending a lot of time on their phone. And if they're on their phone, they're on Instagram, Snapchat. And if they're on their platforms, they are consuming a lot of information through stories. So they're swiping across and swiping up to find out offers and what's going on. So you always have to, from your own point of view, understand who my customer is and where do they spend time. Then it's about how do I get in front of them, in what way, and in the most cheapest possible way, and how do I convert them into our customer. And that's what people have got to spend time learning. But my honest advice is to anyone out there is look at Instagram ads. They are so underpriced, it's unbelievable. They're more underpriced than the leaflets people post through the door.
But then at the same time, Bilal, even though you're saying like have a look at them and see they're really, really underpriced, it'd be really good if you did something where you did like a tutorial and you said, look guys, if you're using me, that's great, this is what I plan to do. And if you're not using me, then, you know, here's how I can help you. And, you know, get in. But this is how we all have to do what we do in our market industries to help people. So for me, it's like, well, my thing is food, so I'll tell people how to cook. And for you, it's marketing. So I would say you have to tell us how to market ourselves, you know?
Of course, you know, we're looking at doing a masterclass as well. But for me, it's always about, rather than using buzzwords, is looking about who you are speaking to and how do we get in front of them. Sometimes I've worked with brands and they've come to me and said, we want to be on Instagram, we want to be huge on Snapchat. And when we've looked at their marketing plan and what they've done in the past, the best return and the most engagement they've had on Facebook. So it's about stripping things back and looking at where's the most value. But I think at the moment, brands should look at putting a lot of branded content out there, which isn't really sales focused, talking about their own backstories. Most people do have a backstory. Learning or getting a bit of an understanding on different marketing techniques and ways, planning forward on the next 6 months on what they're gonna do, how they're gonna do it, and really just keep your ears on the ground. That's very important. And
I would say sorry, go on.
No, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say, with the other things that you're saying about people and, you know, looking at the Instagram ads and that kind of thing and branding themselves, I would say also find out about, once all of this is over, everything will eventually return back to normal, and things they should be considering are putting themselves up for an awards. That's like the book that I've just done, for example. And that really highlights how that helps people to get recognized as a brand. So if you're at home at this time, then what they could be doing is finding out things like, well, once everything gets back together, what are the awards that are going to be available? What can I put myself in for? What can I, what category does my business sit in, and what category do I sit in as a person? Because like we said, Bilal, people need to be branding themselves, not just their business. You know, finding opportunities, things like press releases, learning about them and how they could fit in with your business. There's so many things digitally that we can do. I mean, I was already working from home, and when I say working from home, I mean I like traveling around. I review restaurants. I'm doing quite a few things where people are you know, I have sponsors or ambassador for certain things. And then what we found now, and especially since this changeover and in the last few weeks, it's more as I would say, a micro influencer or an influencer to talk about people's food products during this time. And for me, it's like, who would have thought that I would make more money during this time when we're in lockdown than when I'm not in lockdown? I mean, I would never have thought, if someone said that to me, I would have stopped working, going out a long time ago and just sat at home. But in actual fact, this is a time to build on those opportunities that are there. You just need to have time to invest in yourself, have a look at what you're doing and see where you fit in. People like yourself, Bilal, these are creating opportunities for other people as well, like doing the podcast and things like that, because it's all getting ourselves out there, getting our message out there and talking to people. It's all part of building the brand. So this is a great platform, and doing these kind of things are great for people. So, you know, this is just opportunity for us to grow bigger.
Absolutely. And where can people find out more about you if they want to get in touch with you?
On Instagram, Insta Curry Queen. There's also my website, which is my name.com, sarahalichoudhury.com. And there's also another website that I've just recently set up, and I did that myself. So I'm kind of proud because I did a lot of WordPress playing around on the computer. So that's howtowinawards.co.uk. And then there's Twitter, there's Sarah Curry Queen. LinkedIn is just my name, and Facebook is just my name. So yeah, if anybody wants to connect, then please do. And Bilal, you're going to have to share some information on how I can, market my book a bit more, because that's very new and something I want to take.
We will make your book the #1 seller on Amazon worldwide.
Oh, fab.
Sarah, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Keep well and keep safe.
Thank you, Bilal, and you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone else, for listening. And everyone stay safe, eat well, and be safe.
Thank you.